Interesting interview with Anthony Joshua on Sky Sports. He explains the nature of his performance against Jermaine Franklin before going on to address his recent comments about not fighting again until December. But first of all, regarding the performance against Franklin, he said, when you look at someone's makeup, you have to look at what their attributes are. I'm quite tall, I've got a long range, but I'm not going to be a bruiser. If you look at my character, I'm not the most aggressive, outwardly type of person. I'm not a fighter, I'm more of a boxer. There's a thought process. There's a method behind the madness. I've always tried to develop my boxing IQ, but over 12 rounds, there are times where you have to fight, and I want to become a box fighter. It's why that fight with Jermaine Franklin, I realized I was in with someone who's a counterpuncher. You throw two, they hit you with three. So I changed my game plan. I stuck behind my jab, used my attributes, and got the win. I can build on that because there will be a day where just being a fighter may not work against a certain opponent. The man who has a plan A, B, and C in his locker because he can use his jab, he can move around, he knows how to defend, I think he'll have more of a chance to be victorious on a tough night. I'm glad I got those rounds in the bank and I can move forward on my quest to become a full, well-rounded fighter. Now, what AJ said there sounds cool, trying to develop his skill set so that he becomes a complete fighter. The problem is, the boxing side of things isn't where the biggest problems lie for Anthony Joshua. The biggest problems for him are in the fighting side of things. Against Usyk, he didn't need to box. He needed to take it to the guy, and he failed to do so. That's the aspect of his game that he needs to address the most. I'm not saying that there aren't aspects of his boxing game that can't be improved, because there are, but it's his fighting game that needs the most attention. But for some reason, he's not addressing that. To me, that's a concern. There will be fights when Anthony Joshua, just like against Usyk, is going to have to take it to his opponent in order to stand any serious chance of winning. And they'll have to do it with far more consistency than we saw against Usyk. Obviously. What is good, though, is the fact that AJ is aware of what type of character he is. He admitted that he's not the most aggressive, extrovert type person. He's more of an introvert. When you confront those aspects of your personality, when you acknowledge them, it's only then that you can start to work on them. Now, AJ is never going to be Mike Tyson in terms of his mentality. He's never going to be Deontay Wilder. He's never going to be Dylan White. But he can, over time, become more comfortable in his own skin as a fighter and gain more confidence back. Confidence in his ability to be in a dogfight and come out victorious. Anyway, moving on to what he said regarding not fighting again until December. He said, I'm a thinker, maybe an overthinker. I thought, as I've maybe changed 3 coaches in 3 years, it will be good to develop and work under the guidance of my new coach. And by the time I'm back in the ring, I've cemented and implemented everything he wants. But the only way we're going to put everything he's teaching me to the test is through fighting. But rather than putting pressure on myself, I just wanted to draw a line in the sand and say, I'm not fighting until this date. If I decide to change my mind, I feel I'm able to change my mind, right? So I'm able to fight in July or August if I want, but right now it's off the table. But we are subject to change, provided my coach is happy with what he sees. Okay, so first of all, AJ acknowledging the fact that he's an overthinker. Again, as far as I'm concerned, this is a good thing. Once you realize you're an overthinker, you bring subconscious activity into the conscious mind, and you can start to process it. You can start to train your subconscious to work for you rather than against you. But when he said he doesn't want to put pressure on himself, and that's the reason he said he's not fighting again until December, that sounds concerning to me. What does he mean by not putting pressure on himself? Does he not like fighting anymore? Can he not take fighting 3 times a year psychologically? If that's the case, then maybe he really is just in it for the money now. Maybe he is looking at December as a cash out, not just his promoter Eddie Hearn. AJ isn't the most articulate guy. He struggles to explain himself properly a lot of the time. So we're left trying to interpret, trying to read between the lines, because he puts his words together in a very awkward fashion. The way that I would deal with an overthinker is don't give them enough time to think. And I'm talking from the perspective of advising them. Because if you give them a lot of time to think, they're going to start thinking about worst case scenarios, and this will increase their anxiety levels. So it's even more important for an overthinker to constantly be fighting, to spend more time doing than thinking. And through that process, they'll usually come to realize that things aren't quite as bad as they thought they were. The task isn't quite as daunting as they thought it was. Your imagination can actually be your worst enemy. I think AJ is in good hands with Derek James. I don't know whether he's still in Dubai or whether he's flown back out to Texas to be with Derek again. But I hope it's the latter, because this is a man in Anthony Joshua who clearly needs guidance. He's the type of fighter who needs a father figure to be in his corner. I've spoken about this in some recent videos. He's not the kind of guy that can just figure things out for himself. At least not yet, not at this stage of his career. And some people would say he's at the end of his career. What are you talking about? Well, perhaps, but nobody's Nostradamus here. How many of you would have predicted that Vladimir Klitschko, after losing for the third time when he was knocked out by Lamont Brewster, would have then gone on a 10-year unbeaten run as heavyweight champion? These things do happen and can happen. I'm not saying it will happen with AJ, but I'm not ready to write him off just yet. I certainly don't think he'll go on a 10-year unbeaten run, but I wouldn't at all be surprised if he managed to take down at least one of the big names. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Let me know what you guys think about this Anthony Joshua interview on Sky Sports. How do you interpret what he said? Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast, where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there. Oh yeah, we out here. We out here, bro. Don't get swept off your feet.